Just don't want to cry.
Okay guys, thanks for joining us back on the other side. We were discussing trauma and healing with Her Royal Highness Queen Diambi, and believe you me, she has just given us so much enlightenment beyond the story of slavery for us to really delve into and understand why we are as a people the way we are. Why are we so fragmented in a lot of respects? Why are we so broken? Why are we so damaged and traumatized? Yeah. And this goes way beyond, as I said, way beyond slavery
that we know it.
But what she actually discussed was the consistent subjugation of the continent of Africa. So we're just going to wait for more people to join us. Somebody said Queen Diambi is a library. She certainly is.
She definitely is.
And
we can listen to her all night.
Yeah.
You know, literally, she's just given us such a history class of everything.
And such insight.
Definitely. Yeah. And what I do love is that we need to go back to the trauma. We need to face it. And that's a part of the history. Without us acknowledging that, we can't move forward.
That's right.
Yeah.
Here she is. She's back. Welcome back, Your Highness.
Thank you for welcoming me. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're just going to leave it over to you to take off where you left off, really.
Oh, thank you. So, you know, that's what we have to do. We have to, in order for us to start talking about healing, we really have to be clear of what exactly happened. And what happened is it's not pretty at all. It's really, really traumatic. We're talking about murder. We're talking about rape. We're talking about rape of women, but we're also talking about raping of men. We're talking about our men, the pillar of our communities, who are there to provide, who are there to protect, who are there to procreate, meaning to promote creation for women to do the things that they do best. You know, to wheel and deal, to take care of the marketplace, to bring life forth in the agriculture and from their own bodies. All those men now that were meant to be the guardians of our societies are now taken and they are stripped away from their powers. They are abused in front of our own eyes, in front of the children, in front of the women. All this chaos brings a breakdown of what we call in Africa, in Congo, Ubuntu. Ubuntu, Ubuntu means also the personhood, the humanhood, not humanity. We were always human, but it breaks down something in the core that makes us feel like we are worthy, we are people. So this problem of cognitive dissonance after undergoing such experience leaves us in a place of complete dismay, because we realize, well, we've been defeated. We've been defeated on the land. So if we are defeated and we were not capable of protecting our own, we were not capable of protecting our land, our family, our children, our mothers, then we are by nature incapable. It's now starting because the cognitive dissonance said, no, I'm capable of doing it. And then you realize the reality is like, no, you're not. Because yesterday, again, they came and kidnapped another son of yours. So what kind of a man are you if you're not able to protect your own son? Or if you did, you probably died. Or they took you too. Just like today.
You know, you mentioned about the hypersexualization of Black women. That was a very interesting point that you made, because we hear about it all the time, but I've never really linked it to where it may have started from. But the way you described it kind of laid it out very clearly. If the more sexually pleasing you made yourself to the master, is the more of an easier, and I use that term really loosely, easier life you would have as a slave. You would enjoy privileges in the house, etc. Now, back to the intergenerational trauma and how that can pass through DNA in your generation. My mother is from Jamaica. Now, I can talk from that perspective in terms of what I see. There are a lot of people in poverty in Jamaica. You've been there, you know. There are a lot of people in poverty, and there is something that is quite common in terms of hypersexualization of children in particular, and female children. And within the poorest areas, mothers, just like you said, an enslaved mother might encourage her child to behave in a certain way. Her daughter, she's been raped, so therefore she's going to raise her daughter with this trauma in her mind. Is a similar way in which women in poorer areas, some of them encourage their daughters to sexualize themselves to attract men, often older men, who will give them money and take care of them, etc. So just piecing what you have talked about in my mind together, it's all falling into place in terms of why certain behaviors persist amongst our people, amongst the children of Africa.
Absolutely, and it's all across the board. In Africa, on the continent, it was also the same, because after the period of human trafficking, when the European decided to now exploit the African land, they did basically enslave our people on their own land. So colonization was the same as slavery, except that we were enslaved in our own land. So we had the same exact experiences. We had the lynching, we had the raping, we had, you know, women were raped. We had a bunch of mixed kids coming all over the place. We had children were being, you know, raped. And there's so many other things, you know, to talk about. I'm not an historian, but I know enough to know, for instance, when we talk about child soldiers in Africa, you know, look at Africa and the child soldier. That's not some concept that came from Africa. When the Europeans started to impose the violent conquest of the continent, they often would raid villages for children. These children would be taken, brought to Portugal, put in forts, be extremely traumatized, be raped, beaten, starved for a couple of years, so that their mind can break, and then they can bring them back to Africa and have them now go inland to chase after other Africans, because they would say to them, see, they are the one, your parents abandon you. When you take a 5-year-old and you bring him back to Africa when he's 12, 13-year-old, and then during all this time he's been beaten, he's been raped, he's starved, and all maltreatment that you can imagine, and you tell them it's because of the black people of Africa, it's because he comes from the savages that let him go, then when he comes back on the continent to be those hunters, because they were launching them against the local population. They were black outside, but inside they were not even human anymore, because they underwent so much, you know, torture to let go of that connection, that human connection. So that's why, oh yeah, they sold. The people who were going inland to get Africans out were coming from these kind of, you know, events, this kind of torture. So they don't tell you about that, you know, and this is why we have in Congo, for instance, we say, be careful with the Europeans, because they eat children, because when they used to come and raid, they would take children away. Wow. To train children to be child soldiers for the cause of the European powers. So
you just mentioned something. You just mentioned something about eating children, and I'm not going to go down that pathway because that is a totally different discussion. But that comment that you made resonates with a lot of things that have come, that I've known, that have been spoken about, and I've heard here and there over the course of time, but also certain things that have come to my attention just within recent weeks about various things that are going on in the world, and it's all coming together. So I'm not going to talk about it, but it was just a chord that really resonated about these people, Europeans in particular, coming and eating children. And actually then flipping it on us and saying that we're the savages and we're the cannibals and that we eat each other. But the irony.
This is the whole process of the flipping the script is now to have us wear the guilt and project onto us all the fantasy of their own, of their own attack and everything that they were able to do. The same thing with raping men. You've heard about buck farm. What's buck breaking? What does that mean? That means that all our men who are the strongest man, the most resistant man, the ones that could really represent a threat to that enterprise were basically broken. And how do you break a man? You take away to provide, you take away his ability to protect, and then you humiliate him in front of everybody. And they had the buck farms where they used to take all these men, the one that were not able to run away, or the one that run away and kept on running away to be like the Maroons. If they capture them, they would have them placed in torture chambers where they made them see the most abject treatment that you can even not imagine. So the reason why we have to talk about these things, it's because trauma can be healed when the truth come forth. The truth is the bedrock for the healing of the trauma. Because once we know the truth, once we face the truth, then we understand a little better why are these symptoms keeping or manifesting themselves. The same I Black women, the same I can talk about the Black men. The Black men who were like a stallion and who could reproduce, and then they would have babies. They could have babies in different farms. They used to take him and say, okay, you like a stud, you go over here, you impregnate 10 women enslaved, and then they sell you to another farm for just to go impregnate women in that farm because your babies are going to be strong like you. And because of that, you have a preferential treatment. Because you can sleep with 10 women in a day in that farm. They rent you and they say, okay, I need your stud. I need him to come and impregnate like they do for horses. They did that to our men. They took away their dignity, and they would do it. He had to do it in public. Like, go ahead, sleep with that one, impregnate this one. Okay, I'll give you 2 days to impregnate all the women that are ready to be impregnated, or you stay 1 week. They used to rent them. And now we're surprised that our men, the only sign of manhood that they can hold on to sometimes is their potent sexuality. And we're like, why? Men also are hypersexualized. Why? Because that was a way to escape the masses. And also there are men who were feminized, because if you were, the more feminine you were, the least threat you represented. So therefore, sometimes a mother would actually raise her son to be more feminine so that he could escape, that manhood of his, in some way tame it, so he would not represent a threat to the edifice. So there was so many more, events like that. We can definitely, there is a really great doctor who did research on that in the book, The Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome.
Dr. Joy DeGruy.
Have to absolutely follow her work. She's not the only one. There's other ones, but this is one that has made it plain and simple, because we have to identify all these things, because this is why we now continue to raise our children a certain way. Look at what's going on with all these men that are being killed in the United States and elsewhere, because it's not just an American problem. We have the same problem in Europe, in the UK. We have the same problem in France, in Italy, in Spain. We have the same problem in Brazil. There's about 750 people killed every day in Brazil, Black men in Brazil, every single day. I was in Brazil. I thought I was like, no, I must have misunderstood. It must have been 75 or 750 per year. It was 750 per day. You will not have videos of that. You will not have demonstration for that. But I am a mother of 2 sons, 2 boys. You want to ask me how I raise my children in the United States? I bet you I told them, be careful with the police. You bet me I made sure that was on top of their list. Do not get in any trouble, because if you get in trouble, you're going to have to deal with the police, and they might well just kill you.
Yeah.
So imagine, trauma that our ancestors have lived, to be lynched, it's passed down. They made sure we saw that, and that's what they're doing today. Because what we're seeing, that they're playing this film on a loop, to see this man with a knee on his neck on a loop, not even having respect for his family and for his soul to even blur the face out of respect. They're showing you this could be you. This could be your son. So make sure you train your child well, because we're coming for him. So the trauma is forever present in our lives. I talked about the acculturation of our people. This is another maladaptive behavior. We say, I guess we get treated like this because we're Black. Because there's no other explanation. We don't see why else. It only must be because we're Black. It must be because we are African. It must be because we speak the way we do. It must be because we believe the things we do. It must be because we dress the way we do. It must be because we are Africans. So you know what? We were not to be so African after all. Maybe we would be better off. Then, of course, what you're going to want to train your children. Don't be African. We're going to send you to school in London. We're going to send you to school in Brussels or Paris so you can be like them. You can be, I have had many experiences going back to the Congo. When they see me now with my traditional gear, they're like, oh my God, what happened to you? You almost made it. You were almost one of them. And what, are you crazy? Now you're coming back with shells on your head, with curry, with teeth, with leopard teeth. What is wrong with you? Don't you know that's exactly what's going to drag you into problems? Same with my hair. Oh my God, how many times I go to the marketplace in Kinshasa and women call me and say, oh my God, lady, come here. Please let me fix your hair. This is not okay. Your hair is bad. Let me put a weave on your hair so you can have hair like, you know, Indian woman or woman. So this is also behaviors that are related to trauma. The big problem with these behaviors is that if you concede that the one who oppressed you have it all better than you have, they have figured it out better than you have, and all you have to do is follow them and be like them and have them as your leader. Now that you look at the conditions that we are in, who will you believe when they tell you, you want to get out of the fire? It's this way. You're going to believe them again. Because you're going to not be somebody like me who say, no, 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 no. You want to get out of the fire? It's this way. Pour libation. Learn about history. Value who you are. Value your culture. Elevate the experience of your ancestors. It's not because they were forced to work that they were slaves. They were never slaves. They were always free, but they were captive. They were forced, put in labor camp. They were kept there by force. If it wasn't for force, they would never have stayed. Cultivate that attitude for yourself. Identify those behaviors which are now maladaptive behaviors, because yesterday those behaviors might have been good, might have been adaptive. The sense, yes, you're going to be the preferred, the favorite of the slave master. Wonderful. You're going to have a better life. You're going to have better clothes, better food. Your children may stay with you until you die. That was good then, but it's no longer now. So we have to understand, what is this that we have our women and our men portraying us on video clips with underwears, with barely clothes and showing only our rear parts, like you would show of a female horse, moving and shaking, and then sending the signal to the world that says we accept our condition of subhuman, only good for one thing, for sex, and to portray violence, to portray, you know, degradation of women, to portray that our men are not capable of anything but being violent and gangsters, and that's like, oh wow, we made it. Oh, you went to jail? I went to jail too. Wow, you made it. We went to jail. That's like, oh, I'm tough now. I've been in this. I've been to jail. Oh, I've killed one of mine. Yeah, because they were training us to do so. In the farms, when you had someone who would be rebellious, if, for instance, you killed him or you outed him, if they were preparing a coup or preparing to run away, you would go tell the master, Master, I know so-and-so is about to run away, or he's about to he has some guns, or he has some knives, he's going to do a rebellion. Guess what would happen to you? You would get promoted. You would get a better status in the farm. Maybe you won't get the beating anymore. Maybe they're gonna put you as the one to watch the others. So,
you know, on the point of beating, actually, I just wanted to talk about that because, like we talked about the hypersexualization and then the way that a mother might raise her daughter as a result of her own traumatic experiences, it's the same with beating of our children.
Yeah.
You know, Afro-Caribbean and African people, the way that we struggle to show love, to express love, to say I love you, to be tender and kind, but we are quick to anger and quick to wrath and quick to chastise and physically abuse our children. And most of us who have grown up will have faced a beating from one parent, if not both.
Them. Definitely both.
So this is the same, I think you called it maladaptive behavior.
Behaviors, yes.
Yeah.
And I think we even have adopted those behaviors as being our own of our culture, which they are not. When they came to Africa, they didn't find a jail. They didn't find a place where they burned people to punish them. They didn't find torture instruments. They didn't find places where they hang people. They didn't find any of that. So you have to ask yourself, but how can you have societies from which we're coming from? How did they enforce discipline? What happened? I mean, all the people were nice and just respecting everything. We are human. So we had people that were not always following the rules. But how were the rules enforced? The rules were enforced because everybody has a very potent part of being a cloth of community. You had a part that was essential to the community. You were revered and respected in your community. And if you failed in that role, you will jeopardize the community as a whole. So already is a first step to say, I have a responsibility. When you feel that you have a responsibility and people entrusted in you a responsibility, that makes you a whole different human. And the same thing is with children. Children were already have responsibility very young, because they were always with the adults or the elder brothers and sisters to learn how to help the community in the community. This is how they learn a trade. You could walk, okay, you will go to the farm, to the field with mom. You would be on mom's back at first, and then you would be on the floor. Maybe one day you will hand her the seeds. Maybe one day you will help her take out the bad weeds. So you were always with adults, you know. You were never just left to your own, put all the children together with one adult and then they tell you what to do. It doesn't work. We had a completely different education system. But that idea of beating people to submission, foreign idea from Africa. It's a foreign idea. So how was the debt paid? If you owe somebody something, if you couldn't pay, well, you would give your service. You will go there and give your service and say, okay, I'm going to work here until my debt is paid. If you kill somebody, well, if you kill my son, you are the son of this woman and you kill my son. I'm missing a son. She is not. So what's my use to have you killed too? No. I prefer that you become my son. So you can replace the son you took away from me. And now you basically, I have you in my own home to do everything that son could have done for me had he been here, had you had killed him. So now you are going to become that one. You are going to fulfill, you're going to give your entire life. And this is what they call slaves. But these children, these men would come to my family now to replace the son he took away from me. So now his family is lacking a son, not mine. So they are punished because they're lacking a son. I have a son. That son will take my name. That son will marry in my home. That son will become a king one day, which we have example of. Many kings of Africa were people that came from that kind of lineage. Not necessarily bloodline, but they were integrated in the family of the people who owned them in a way, but not own them like an object. Own them as, you are ours. You belong to us now. So that's another story that they tell you about. Oh, but Black people had slaves too. No, we had people that we owned, but you were owned as a family member. You had right to marry, you had right to work, you had right to ownership, you had right to educate your children the same as the other children of the clan, of the family. You had right to leadership, you had right to sit on the throne. So so much we need to know. That's why I said the importance of really digging and having our own scholars tell us our history. Let go of these so-called Africanists, who are all non-African people specialized in Africa. They specialize in nothing but telling us lies. We have to go and seek our elders, like the Sheikh Anta Diop, the Teofilo Benga, the Dr. Benyo Akanan, the Professor Jeffries. These are the people, the Francis Crest, those are the people all over, the Marcus Garvey, those are the people we need to study. We need to go back to the source, and it doesn't have to be scientific and all, intellectual. We can make stories, and this is why now we're going to talk about the healing. How do we heal? We know why we are traumatized. We know how trauma manifests itself. Trauma manifests itself in maladaptive behaviors. Maladaptive, all the behaviors that do not serve our cause, do not serve our communities. So when I have my money, and the first thing I do, the first thing I do when I get my paycheck is to go and buy an Italian, purse that costs 5,000 pounds. That is a maladaptive behavior, because that money you work for, you go put it in the hands of the plantation owner, just the same as your sister did. But they were forced to do so. You are not. So that's where the trauma act. You are not forced to do these behaviors, but you do them automatically now. You cannot walk out of the street unless you have that pair of sneakers on your feet that costs 300 pounds. But who is eating the 300 pounds? You? Your community? Nothing. So those are my behaviors that will not serve to fortify your community in which you are, in which you can fortify yourself. So you are doing behaviors that are against your own interest. You cannot see now that to be in a community is going to serve your personal interest. It's going to serve your life to thrive and your children's life to thrive. You think that, oh, if I make it, I can just move and go into a better neighborhood. But who are you going to be in these neighborhoods?
Do you know that that's actually what's happened in the UK quite a bit. So in inner city areas, for example, in London, you have these estates, quite deprived areas, underprivileged areas, I would say. And for the most part, especially in the 70s and 80s, a lot of Black people of African descent from the Caribbean particularly, would be housed in these locations. So these deprived areas in deprived locations. Now, people were very successful at creating a sense of community. I came from that. But what happened is those communities were subtly and systematically eroded by any means necessary, mostly financially. So you remove all of the facilities within that community, youth centers, you create opportunities very subtly for there to be delinquency and trouble. And then what happens is parents get afraid, especially for their boys, and they say, oh my gosh, we've got to move out of this area. I want a better future for my kids. So they move out, and they move out seeking a better life in their individual thinking, not their collective body of water thinking, but in their individual thinking. And in doing so, they break a piece of the community off. And slowly
Yes.
those communities disintegrate. I've seen it happen time and time again.
But then, even with what you're saying, Janelle, I mean, is what is the alternative option? Do you know what I'm saying? Because, do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
if you're in those environments, as a mother, you're going to want to protect your child. So you're going to look at, you know, I need to protect my child. I need to get out of an environment and know that it's going to basically cause harm to my child. They're going to, it's like you've been forced out.
You are, and I totally agree. And I don't hold, my parents moved out, and I don't hold it against anybody who moves out. But when you move out, you're not dealing with the trauma, you're running from the problem. You're running from the problem, and you may create a better life for your child. But what does that better life mean? Psychologically, you're telling your child that better life is away from your people. That better life is in a white area. That better life is disassociated with your culture. So all of these messages you're feeding into your children as well is equally as damaging. So I'm not saying there's an answer, but we have always been encouraged to think that the answer is getting away from it.
Yes.
We think individually, we don't think collectively.
That's very true. I totally agree with you, but I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm just saying from the flip side, how the mother would actually want to protect their own.
Yeah, and that's one of the example of a maladaptive behavior, because we realize that by breaking down our communities even furthermore, you're not even protected. I mean, I can give you hundreds of examples of people that live in the fantastic neighborhood and get stopped by the police because they're driving such a car. And I just had a video not so long ago about a banker, an African UK. He's a black man in the UK, and he was a banker. He drives a beautiful car. He lives in a beautiful neighborhood. He got arrested. They did a bunch of stuff. They said he had firearm. It was crazy. All that was a lie. So there is no such place as a place where we are protected in a system that is built to attack us. We are not safe anywhere. You can be in the best neighborhood. Your child may be going to a party, a birthday party, to a friend's house or school or whatever, walk from school and be with kids that look like him. And then yet they're not going to say, oh, no. You live in a good neighborhood, so you're okay. They will not do it. And also now you're asking your child to also adopt certain behaviors, because living in those good neighborhoods will ask you to do some adaptive too behaviors. For instance, they're going to tell you, oh, you are so smart for a black person. What is your child going to say?
Mm-hmm.
You are not like the others. You think it's a compliment? So that's when they're starting eroding your humanhood.
Mm-hmm.
And from the whole. So yes, I understand, but this is the responsibility of our leadership. This is the responsibility of those who've made the money, enough money to go and buy properties in those communities, build community centers, engage into giving, making the schools better in those communities. So of course, there's a lot of work to do. I'm not going to say that it's going to just go away in a blip of an eye, but we have to understand who we are, our history, what led us to this decay of our communities, and also understand that we are also extremely strong people. And this is why we still represent a threat, despite the fact that we have been given all the rotten food. We are still here standing tall and playing the best sports and being champions everywhere. And everything we undertake, we do it better than everybody else when we have the chance. So that just shows us something fundamental, that there is within us a strength that allows us to say now, if we tackle the maladaptive behavior, if we see what's going on, if we start to identify those behaviors, and we do a lot of spiritual work, because it's not only about intellectual. We can change our cognition, but our cognition is not so easy to change because we have been formatted in the Western paradigm. So we think the West is best. Even if you don't think so. Yeah, but we have even I have to fight against that every day. So we know we are framed in the Western paradigm. That's why it's important to reconnect with the rituals, with the spiritual understanding of the world, because spirituality is not about dogmas and just praying, and it's not about that. Spirituality is about how you frame your understanding of existence and your place in it. How did our ancestors that were successful for hundreds of thousands of years Not no 2,000 years, not 3,000 years, my dear. Hundreds of thousands of years. So this episode here is a blip in human history. And it's okay. And that's one of the things I want to say. We cannot put history on a stand and go to court with history. It happened. So now let's see the benefit of this history. Despite everything we went through, here we are. You are from Jamaica. You are in the UK. I'm from Congo. I'm also from Belgium. I'm in the United States, and I travel the world and I see amazing Africans all over the world. Isn't that a success? We are still here. So we have to put that in front of our struggle. Not put the negative first. In front of our struggle, we have to affirm, stand strong, stand firm, and say, yes, we are living under the worst condition on the planet right now, but this is not the first time this is happening, and we've been towards bring it on. We may not have the same food than you. We may not have the same school than you. But we have something inherently in us that makes us exceptional beings. And that is transcribed in our history. That is transcribed in our understanding of reality. That is transcribed in our understanding, in our sciences, in our rituals. This ritual of water is no small thing. We are made of water. We are made of water.
It's true.
We're going to come to it in a minute, because we do want you to take us through the process of healing, and not just healing. As Kaz and I said, healing starts with yourself first, and then it becomes a collective thing. And you know, if we all heal individually, we can heal collectively. But somebody said, and we agree, you're dropping so much knowledge beyond what most of us have probably discovered for ourselves. So a lot of us think we know a lot, but the way that you've kind of put it together and pieced it together makes so much sense, and has definitely encouraged myself and Kaz, I'm sure, to go out and seek so much more. But somebody said, are there any books you can recommend on the topic? So we've got about 20 minutes left. I'm going to leave a little slot at the end for you to recommend some reading, but I would really like you now to take us through what it means for us to start that process of healing individually, within our homes as families, and then collectively as a people.
Okay, so I will talk about my own example. When I left Africa, I was about 16 years old. And back then, growing up in Kinshasa, I wanted to be more Westerner than anybody else. I only listened to American music, Western music. The Congolese music was not interested. We were dressing like, European girls, and we had our hair relaxed and everything. That was like, the top. And then on my luck was also that I was lighter skinned because, my mother was white. So it was like, oh, I'm almost one of them. And it was all about being as Europeanized as possible. I was the typical traumatized African woman. I went to Europe. I realized that despite the fact that I tried to be assimilated as much as possible, I still didn't have my place around the table. Yes, they would tell me, you're smart for a black girl. Oh, you're pretty for a black girl. Oh, you're not so savage as we thought you would be. So I would tell them, but what do you think? In Africa, we have cities too. In Africa, we have cars too. In Africa, we have, so now the trying to make of Africa, we have the same stuff as you do have in Africa, and not seeing the value of all the other stuff that are qualified as stuff for the savages. Past that episode, I come to the United States. Thank God. I meet African Americans for the first time in my life. And I realize the strength, and I learn about the experience, and I start to go to different libraries where I can find books like of the, Dr. Ben and Professor Small-Jeff. I start to read the first, the ISIS paper and Cheikh Anta Diop. I got that from the United States because I see Black students looking like me. They want to ask me a lot of questions about Africa, and I realize I really don't know anything about Africa. I mean, I know where I grew up, the city, blah, blah, blah. I'm a city girl. So I don't, but what else I can say? I can say that I listen to the same music as them. I watch the Olympic Games like them. I know all the superstars. I know the movies. I watch Dallas on TV. So I was like, I'm kind of like you. But that's not what they wanted to hear from me. They wanted to hear, how is Africa? That forced me to go back now, to do Sankofa, to go deep within myself and to get the information that I needed to get in order for me to really understand what it was to be an African. And when you are away from home, that drum, you hear it.
Mm.
And this is why I say it starts from you. You have to make a decision that something is not right with you. You can be well off. I'm not saying about material. Something is not right with you. When you make that decision that you want to heal, then you will summon the energies that you need to restore yourself, because everything is within us. We are made of the same thing as the rest of the cosmos. Every experience that our ancestor went through is within us. So when I started to know about Africa, I realized that the Africans on this side kept their psyche intact because they held on to their traditions. I started to learn about Condomblé. I started to learn about the Orishas. I started to learn about the Palo. I started learning about the Vodouam. I was like, wow, why did they hold on to this? And what came out of this? A spirit of strength, a spirit of resistance, a combative warrior spirits. I was like, this is something else. Is there an equivalent of that in Africa where I grew up? I started to look and I realized it was there all along. I could see it. I didn't identify it as what it was, but it was there. The ashe, what they call the ashe, that breath of God was always there. And it takes work to reconnect with that. And everybody doesn't have that ability to gain this kind of knowledge intellectually. And it's okay. But there is other ways to do it. The acceptance of self, the acceptance that I'm made at the image of God, and God does not make a mistake. So my hair, my skin, my lip, my big lips, whatever it is, I am just a manifestation of the divine. In my tradition, we call Muchima. Muchima is the seat in your heart where God has a siege. That's where God resides within you. So when you know who you are and you understand that this thing about the slavery, the colonialism and all that, it was all an endeavor for profit. It was a big venture for people to benefit from our labor as they are benefiting today. Like I said, I work very hard for a month and all my money, I go put it in some store on the most expensive stores. It's the same thing as if I had worked on the sugarcane plantation. Because all my hard work, I gave it away. It never stayed in my community. We have healing is a decision. It's not just going to fall from the sky, and we don't have the saviors that's just going to come and save you. Boom, bam, boom, you are saved. We've seen all of those. What's the difference? They're still kneeling on our brother's neck. Yesterday, they still shot another one. Who's coming to save us? We are our saviors. We have to make a decision, and everybody has to make a decision at their own level. Yes, the reading is important. I will give you some books that I've read myself, and I've been following a lot of elders. Sitting by your elders' feet. Go to your grandmother. Go to your grandpa. Go to the elders in your community. Ask them, talk to them, ask them questions about their life. How was it? Because this is a line that is circulating energy. They will tell you, look at yourself in the mirror. Give yourself that strength. I am somebody. I am Ubuntu. I am human. I am the siege of God. Dress accordingly. We do it. Do little things. Do rituals at home. Cleanse your home. Make prayers for your ancestors. Give offering. Go to the water bodies and give offerings and get connected with other people in the communities who are doing that. Today, you cannot say, oh, I'm by myself. All you have to do is a click. You look online and you find many YouTube lives and YouTube video, Instagram. You can even send Queen Diambi a text on Instagram. Come on. You know, you cannot say, I don't know how to do it. No, you cannot say that. We have many of our elders have laid a path for us. So I'm not laying any path. I'm just walking on it. The elders like Mark Garvey made it clear. The Lumumbas made it clear. The Malcolm X made it clear. All of these elders walked, all these women that walked for us to be able to be women today and stand our ground. All we have to do is walk the path. But we have to understand one thing. All of this, we have to set our intention on one focal point. Building our African community. This is essential. That you see me as I see you. We are sisters. Earlier, you mentioned something about you going to Ghana and being in Ghana and feeling, I don't feel like I've been here. Of course, because they had work done on them to make sure that they look at you as a foreigner and not as their own daughter. And this is the work I'm going to do. When I travel to Africa, I talk about you. And I say, oh, you should see our babies. They are magnificent. Yeah, they talk with a funny accent, but that's all. They are magnificent. They eat as we do. They dance like we do. I tell them your story. And I tell them you're going to see them and you're going to be so proud of them. And they are awaiting you now. But the story has to be told because they don't know. My people in the Congo were forbidden to speak about the human trafficking period of 400 years. If they spoke about it after 1885, they were killed.
Wow.
They could not say, you know, auntie so-and-so and brother so-and-so were taken to put on boats and to be taken somewhere we don't know. If you say the story, you would get killed, and the person you told the story would get killed. That means your child. I met such man who is now 87 years old in Congo. He told me, his grandmother told him, if I tell you this, please do not ever open your mouth. Because if somebody know I told you that our family were deported, I will get killed and you will get killed. So how do you expect the African continent to know that story when we got our memory completely deleted by force? They don't know that, oh, you know, I'm from Jamaica, hence I am the descendant of the descendant of the descendant of my uncle. They don't know. They have no clue. Only few countries like Ghana, Nigeria, because Nigeria, they have the Orishas, and many people are going back to Nigeria because of that. Ghana, of course, Ghana has opened the doors more. But you're going to go in Congo? Who knows that you were taken? Who? I can take you to my villages. Oh, they are our children from over there. Oh, who's their mother? They will ask me. I said, no, they left 400 years ago. Oh, why told us this? So we are blinded because we have been deprived of our history. And when we are deprived of our history, we are deprived of our true identity. And what is trauma? Trauma is what causes decay of your identity. So how do you heal? You restore your identity. How do you restore your identity? You learn about who you are and who you come from. Now you learn it intellectually, but you integrate it in your soul. You accept these truths. You take this truth in and you manifest them. You share what you know. You tell a sister, you tell a young girl, oh, you know what? Why are you dressing like that? You dress like a prostitute. Don't you know you are a princess? I don't know I'm a princess. You know what? I spoke to Queen Diambi, and Queen Diambi says, you are a princess. And matter of fact, next time she comes to UK, she's going to make you a princess. She's going to do a ritual so you can be restored to your blood right of being a princess. And you're going to naturally want to behave like one. Because no, I'm not cheap. I'm a princess. So this is I make all over the world. I crown my daughters back. I crown them back. And that's a restorative process. There are many rituals that we do. We do other rituals called kasala. I will explain more on kasala, but it's like a ritual poetry that everyone has to either talk about themselves or have the community talk about you. It's almost like a eulogy, but you're not dead. They will tell you all the best about you. They will sit you on a throne. They will dress you up and they will tell you how beautiful and how valuable, how precious you are. You don't get out of that chair the same as you sat when you first sat.
Wow.
So we have to take the wealth that our ancestors left behind and we have to claim them. And we have to also be courageous enough to look at everything they taught us with suspicion. I regret to say many people who have engaged into believing the lies that they told us to subjugate us, but some lies are just poison. Because if they were not poison, we wouldn't be where we are today.
That's so true. Really true. We've got about 10 minutes and we've got a few questions.
Yes.
You had a question? Yeah, we've got a question from Deanna, and her question was, what do you think about those blood tests that trace your ancestry? What's your views on that?
Personally, I really don't like them because I think there is an ulterior motive in the industry, the DNA industry. We don't really know who these industry belong to. Actually, we do know they don't belong to us, and we don't know what's done with that DNA. We know that there is a lot of work being done in labs to identify particular genetic material in order for them to do work to come up with solution to make sure that they target specific DNA to basically extermination. So I can send also a reference video that I have on that. There are people, whistleblowers, that have talked about that they use a different science that's not just DNA science, but even furthermore than that, to identify certain ways to cause harm to particular people, depending on the DNA. I understand why people do that. I understand that you are far from Africa, you want to reconnect, and you kind of like, where do I belong? I want to know if I'm from this country or this tribe and so forth. I get it. I can say, well, yes, I'm a Luntu on my father's side and I'm a Belgian on my mother's side. Okay. But what I cannot say is that I'm African from every side. Because see, you were taken from all over different places and brought to create the first Africa. Africa is a new concept. It's a concept that came from the new world that your ancestors created. Mm-hmm. You are the true African. You are Africa come together, manifested in one human being. So I want to tell my brothers and sisters, you should not have to wonder where you come from. You come from any place you wish, because in your blood, I bet you that there is blood from all these tribes together. These DNA tests, they don't have the accuracy that we think they do. They just, identify maybe 200 years or 100 years, like, there is this marker. But no, you cannot say, I'm a Ga, because all you think, all the people that you were in contact with were Ga. No, they were Congo, they were Ashantis, they're such a mixed. So you are by far the most African people that exist on this face of this planet. So you have a claim on any land, on any country, on any tribe. You shouldn't have to say, you can pick whichever one you want by affinity if you like them better, but you have to understand that you belong to us. You belong to all of us. You don't have to limit yourself and think that you're going to only be welcome where your DNA is from. No. There's not such thing, because Africans already are from the same family. So you are Africa united. You are the example of what Africa has to aspire to become. Because even the divisions that we have now, all these fake countries, where did we get them from? Where did we get Look at the name of my country, Democratic Republic of Congo. What? It's a country, and I don't even have an African name.
Come on now.
Liberia. What? Ivory Coast. You are an African country and your name is Ivory Coast? Seriously? So we have to deconstruct the walls of the prison, the mind prison that we are in. Those countries do not exist and shall not exist for the survival of our people. They are not there for our kids. They are there to divide us. The same thing as Jamaican are divided from the UK British and from the American British, or from the, they are just to divide us. And that is a maladaptive behavior, to think of us we are different than from another. When I sit in mourning for George Floyd, because George Floyd is my son,
That's
no
right.
mom can say, oh, they killed George Floyd, so therefore I can go party tonight. No. So long as they're killing our boys out there, our sons out there is no party going on.
None at all.
whatsoever.
Do you know, there's been so many beautiful comments, and there's been so much information that we want to continue to absorb from you. Somebody said we need to do a part 2, 3, and 4. We might just explore that, because I think, you know, you're such a font of knowledge and you've really blessed us. But just as in the way you started this show with us, with libations, is there any way that we can end with some kind of prayer with you, or spiritual ritual, and for all of our viewers out there, that will be the beginning of each person's quest to solve their trauma and move towards being healed? I invite you, Your Royal Highness, to do that for us, please.
I'm going to do, I have some sage that I use just as a cleanser, that you can use some herbs. You can use incense to cleanse your space, because we have poured a lot of pain in this space right now. We have poured our tears. We have poured our heart. We have we have opened very, very deep wounds. But we have to understand one thing. Just like our body, our mind is also meant to fix herself, to repair. When you are cut, you will see what happened. Your body is made to restore itself. So you're going to bleed, and then it's going to coagulate. Then you're going to have a scab. Then eventually the scab is going to go. The skin is going to be a little weaker there. And then after days and days, we are meant to be able to fix ourselves. The same way our spiritual system is also built with a self-fixing system. But because of the trauma we have gone through, that self-fixing system has also endured a lot of shock. So we have to invoke our own power, the power of our own spirit, to give us the strength to restore ourselves as a community and as a people. So I call on all the forces of ether, all the forces of the universe, all the forces of our ancestors and our primordial ancestor, the source of all life called the Nun. I call on all these energies to penetrate into our energy system, to see where there needs to be corrections, to bring healing light, to bring healing energy, to restore all the centers that are the monitoring centers, so that we can be in balance with life, that are now have been disturbed because of the environment in which we live, because of the education we have received, because of our history. We are calling onto the principle of life itself to do its work, the work that it was built for, to restore and promote life. African people have been given and entrusted a very valuable task. The task of leading humanity to elevate its consciousness. The good we want to do for African people is not just for African who are of descendant of the African continent. It's for humanity, because we don't see us apart from the rest of humanity. We see ourselves as integrated part of the whole. But this part is a wounded part, and we need to restore ourselves. We need to have all the means necessary to do so. May you open path to our enlightenment. May you open path to the elders, so that they can come forward to bring about the healing words, the healing actions, the healing rituals. I am calling on to all the forces of the universe to bless every single human being on this planet, so that they can heal. Because in front of us, we are wounded. There is the one who inflicts the wound as well. And that man and woman also needs healing. Because had it been an intact human being, they would have never carried on with such violence and brutality. So healing has to happen for all the planet. And we are here to beg and ask for the blessing of the ancestors. Tap, I'm going to cleanse. So I have a little sage that I'm cleansing. This
We've got 10 seconds left. We will bring you back just to close, but
it's closed. Thank you. Tap.
thank you.